My mother-in-law loses her mind over my pregnancy and tries to sabotage me, all while planning her own wedding and stirring up drama. So, I'll get straight to the point. My mother-in-law and I don't have a good relationship. We've never had one. Mother-in-law has always been rude to me right from the start. Now, I know you must be thinking that the reason she is this way is maybe because she's overprotective about her son, right? Well, no. She is this way because she doesn't like the fact that I'm a good wife to her son. For context, my husband Rick had a very rough childhood with my mother-in-law. You see, mother-in-law is the sort of woman who never believed in marriage, so she would constantly be dating random men. Even if she did get married, she married twice. Both of her marriages ended up as complete disasters. Rick is her oldest child from her very first marriage. He has told me that his parents were extremely toxic together and would sometimes even have physical fights, which Rick unfortunately witnessed. Mother-in-law has always been an alcoholic, so she would sometimes go for hours drinking, forgetting to feed Rick. His biological dad was no better. As a result, Rick was forced from a very young age to step up and take care of himself. When his dad left his mom, mother-in-law started using drugs, so Rick had to take care of her as well to ensure she wouldn't end up dead somewhere in the streets. When it was time for him to go to college, he had had enough of my mother-in-law, so he immediately moved out to his dorm for a new beginning. Mother-in-law would guilt-trip him, saying he abandoned her. She would also force him to give her part of his monthly wages from his part-time jobs. Rick felt guilty about abandoning the only parent he had left, so he gave in to her demands. In his third year of college, mother-in-law married again and had a daughter named Susan. Rick knew the kind of mother she was, so he was always gentle and kind to his stepsister. It's impressive how close Rick and Susan are, even today. Once mother-in-law married again, she stopped asking Rick for everything, since she then had a husband to fulfill her needs and got busy raising Susan. When Rick joined his first job at our company, he met me. I'm a year older than him and his senior at work. I have to say that from our very first meeting, I noticed how attractive he was, but being a working professional, I never thought about crossing the line. It was only 8 months later when Rick finally confessed that he had always had a crush on me that we decided to go out on our first date. Once we knew that this was what we wanted and were serious about each other, we disclosed our relationship to HR. Fortunately, our company doesn't have any strict policies against co-workers dating, as long as it is reported beforehand. Rick has always told me that my coming into his life has changed him for the better. I don't know how true that is, but I have to say that after I came into his life, I started noticing how much control his mother had over his life. She would waste no opportunity to gaslight him and try to paint herself as this innocent victim every time she and Rick had a disagreement. She would put him down by remarking that he was exactly like his father. This would hurt Rick since his dad had abandoned them, and it was very painful for him to relive it. When I came into his life, I encouraged him to have a healthy space from her so she wouldn't be able to affect him so much. Since we've been in a relationship, I've noticed a positive change in Rick. He has stronger boundaries with my mother-in-law now. Rick is the sort of man who loves bragging about his partner, me, even though I sometimes might get embarrassed. He is very open when it comes to complimenting me. It's one of his best qualities, which I absolutely adore. Whenever Rick and my mother-in-law talked, he would tell her how much he loves being with me and how well I take care of him. I guess this is how mother-in-law first started resenting me. Rick would always tell her how his life is so much better now with me in it and how he has never been this happy. Mother-in-law would then try to gaslight him and say how she sacrificed so much for him. But Rick would retort that it was him who sacrificed his childhood taking care of her while she drank and did drugs. Mother-in-law hated hearing this, since, according to her, the past should remain in the past, and she would then scold Rick for bringing it up. One night, when Rick and I were living together, mother-in-law showed up at our doorstep in the middle of the night, crying about how she couldn't live with her husband anymore. It turns out mother-in-law had cheated on her husband with a complete stranger at a bar. When this stranger found out that she was married, he promptly found mother-in-law's husband through Facebook and sent him a message apologizing for sleeping with his wife and explaining that he had no idea she was married. Understandably, her husband was furious and confronted her about it, but she refused to apologize, saying it was just a one-time mistake and that if he was a real man, he should forgive her and fight for their relationship. Fortunately for the husband, he was done being manipulated by her and promptly kicked her out. This is why she showed up at our doorstep, begging Rick for help. Rick told her that this was all her fault and that she needed to apologize to her husband immediately. But mother-in-law kept refusing, saying she didn't need a guy like him and that she had Rick to take care of her. I rolled my eyes hearing this, since this was always her excuse. She would mess up and expect her son to take care of it. But things were different. I was living with Rick, so I told him privately that his mother could not stay with us for long and that she needed to find her own accommodation since I couldn't deal with her drama. Thankfully, Rick agreed. And, after we let her stay for a week, during which mother-in-law did absolutely nothing around the house, she left. She would leave her dirty dishes on the counter or in the sink and her dirty laundry on her bedroom floor, expecting me to clean up after her. She would demand that I cook her favorite meals, and on days when I was too tired to cook, she would taunt me about how bad of a partner I was for ordering takeout and claim that her son deserved much better than this. I kept quiet since this was her first time staying with us, and I was trying my best to be mature. I once also discovered that she had been smoking in our kitchen, as she left her cigarette butt on the floor for me to clean up. Living with her was a nightmare, and as soon as the week passed, I talked with Rick about asking her to leave. He sat her down and calmly tried to talk to her about it. But hearing this, mother-in-law erupted in anger. She started saying how he was being insensitive and that, as his mother, he should take care of her as long as she needed without question. She continued to say that she had every right to stay at our place and that he was being disrespectful by asking her to leave. I scoffed when hearing her words and told her that she was wrong. This was our place, which both Rick and I were paying for, so she had absolutely no rights to anything here without my permission. I continued telling her how we had been more than welcoming to her for a week, but she had done nothing to make it easier on us, and now it was time for her to give us our own space. Rick agreed with my words and added that she should probably try to apologize to her husband, or maybe go live with her sister. This is when mother-in-law erupted in anger again, screaming at Rick, asking how dare I talk to her this way and saying that this was not my business, so I should just keep my mouth shut. Now, I'm not a woman who takes crap from anyone, so I calmly told her that her time of trying to control and manipulate everyone was done, and we didn't appreciate her trying to bring her drama into our place. I told her she needed to leave immediately. Her eyes widened in shock upon hearing this, but Rick interjected, saying that she should never speak to me this way again. He reminded her that I was his equal partner, and that he didn't appreciate anyone talking to me like that, especially after I had taken care of her this whole week. He told her how lucky he was to have me in his life, and that I had taken care of him more than she ever had in her entire life. Mother-in-law did not like hearing this, and started yelling back, saying how she had done her best for him, and that he should be grateful to her for the life he had now and allow her to live with us. But Rick was in no mood to listen further. Ultimately, she had to pack up and leave. The very next day, we found out that she went to live with Susan. This incident just made our relationship with her even worse, but I have never regretted standing up to her. Anyway, I guess this is why she has always been competitive with me and continues to resent me. When Rick and I got married, she warned him, saying that he would regret getting married to a woman like me and that he needed to marry a more homely wife who could take care of his house. I laughed hearing this irony coming from her, especially since she was far from being a homely wife herself. She didn't attend our wedding in protest, but honestly, no one cared. We all had the best time of our lives. Now, coming on to the incident at hand, I'm 3 months pregnant. Rick and I had not informed anyone about this because I have had a miscarriage before. This second pregnancy has taken a long time, so we were extra careful and didn't want to inform people beforehand. Now that we are out of the danger zone, we felt it was appropriate for us to inform our loved ones. We wanted to surprise everyone, so we called everyone for an intimate gathering at our place. Rick wanted his mother to be present, and I agreed, since regardless of our relationship, I wanted our child to be loved by everyone. When people started arriving, they would notice my belly and take a moment to process before exclaiming in happiness. Everyone was so happy for us and was excitedly asking if we had come up with baby names. When the doorbell rang, mother-in-law arrived. I was shocked to see her walking inside arm in arm with a new man. I looked at Rick, and he looked equally shocked. She then introduced him to everyone, saying this was her fiancé and that she was getting married in a few months. My mouth dropped open. I couldn't believe how unbelievably entitled she was to not even inform us about her new partner yet show up at our place to make the announcement. Irritated, I looked at Rick and he was pissed as well. But we didn't want to ruin the moment, so we politely congratulated her. As I walked up to shake her hand and introduced myself to her new fiancé, mother-in-law suddenly spotted my belly. I watched her smile falter as she looked from me to Rick. Angrily, she then asked loudly if I was pregnant, and I nodded. Everyone around us started exclaiming how wonderful the news was. I glanced at mother-in-law, and she was red in the face. She looked at Rick and asked him why he hadn't informed her before. Rick joked, saying that she hadn't informed us about her fiancé either. Mother-in-law then started to say how, as his mother, she needed to be the first one to know about her future grandson. I interjected and calmly explained to her that we didn't want to jump the gun and spread the news until we were sure we were out of any potential risks. I reminded her how our last miscarriage had taught us to be careful, and that we had called everyone today to our place to celebrate this news together. But mother-in-law was not satisfied with the response. She told me that she was getting married in 6 months, which would also be when I would be giving birth. I told her that she Should be happy to have a grandchild in the same month as her wedding. But mother-in-law looked pissed. She retorted that she was still too young to be a grandmother and that she would have appreciated us giving her a heads up since now she would have to speed up her wedding process. She didn't want anyone to call her a granny on her wedding day. Her reasoning sounded absurd, and I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her misplaced priorities. I calmly reminded her that the focus should be on celebrating the new additions to our lives, both the upcoming wedding and the impending arrival of our child, rather than worrying about what people might say. But mother-in-law, like a child, decided to blatantly ignore me as if I didn't exist and walked away to talk to other guests. I shook my head since I knew her quite well by now, and her immaturity was not astonishing to me anymore. Rick and I decided to let it go and got busy with our friends. When Susan arrived, she greeted us warmly and congratulated us on our pregnancy. Rick asked her if she knew their mother was engaged again, but she looked just as surprised as us and told him that their mother hadn't told her anything about a new man. She joked that they shouldn't be surprised by her since, clearly, mother-in-law changes her man like the weather. When it was time to serve lunch, I got up to bring the food out, but Rick and my parents urged me to remain seated, telling me that I shouldn't lift a finger and that they would serve everyone. My mother-in-law must have overheard them and was probably trying to act nice in front of everyone or impress her new fiancé because she interjected, saying that she would help out by bringing me a plate so I wouldn't have to lift a finger. I smiled politely, not knowing how to react, since just a minute ago she was blatantly ignoring me, and now she wanted to bring me my food. She had never been nice to me, so I couldn't imagine why she was suddenly trying to act so nice. As we all sat down at the table to have our meal, mother-in-law came and handed me a plate. She announced loudly that she had chosen more vegetables rather than meat so her future grandbaby would be strong and healthy. I didn't mind the vegetables, since she was more of a vegetarian herself, and everyone around me oohed and awed, saying how well she was taking care of me. But I knew her better. This was completely uncharacteristic of her. I looked at the food suspiciously, trying to see if she had done anything to it, but it looked completely normal. Mother-in-law brought out her plate and then went back to the kitchen to get herself a plate, which was quite unusual for her. Unbeknownst to people around me, I surreptitiously exchanged plates, since she had brought a lot of vegetables as well, and I hoped she wouldn't notice. I thought no one had caught me, but I noticed her fiancé sitting next to her looking at me. He didn't say anything, so I prayed he wouldn't tell her either. Before she came back, I started gobbling my food so she would be less suspicious. I watched her sit down next to me, and then she asked if I was enjoying the food. I told her I was, and she told me that I should try out the salad that she had brought me, as apparently new mothers should eat more salad. I nodded and kept eating. Mother-in-law then took a bite of her food, chewed it slowly, and immediately spat it out loudly in front of everyone. My eyes widened in shock as I saw her looking at the plate closely, while others asked her if everything was okay. This was the very plate she had given me and that I had exchanged with hers. She took a sip of her drink but continued to cough, so she excused herself to go to the bathroom. I immediately whispered to Rick that we needed to talk since I didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone. Worried that she had intended to harm me by mixing something with my food, I told him what had happened. He looked at me incredulously when I recounted the entire thing, and then asked me if I was sure about this. I nodded and told him that I didn't know what she had mixed into the food, but I did exchange her plate with mine and that he could ask his mother's fiancé about it if he wanted. Rick assured me that he was going to take care of it. I tried to stop him, saying that we could confront his mother later, but he wasn't having it. He stormed into the house immediately, and I saw him talking to his mother's fiancé. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Rick was visibly furious. His mother returned from the bathroom, looking confused and concerned. She tried to approach the situation casually, but Rick cut her off in a firm and controlled voice. He asked, "Did you do something to my wife's food?" The question hung in the air, and everyone around the table fell silent, sensing the tension. Mother-in-law stammered, denying any wrongdoing, and acted innocent. She claimed that she only wanted to make sure I had a healthy meal for the baby. Rick wasn't buying it. He warned her loudly that if she didn't confess right then and there, he would call the police. Everyone looked at them confused, as no one had any idea that I had exchanged plates and that she had eaten from the plate she had originally given me. Mother-in-law tried to get out of it by saying she had done nothing and that it was probably just our wild imagination, but I walked into the room and told everyone what had happened. My mother gasped in shock and disdain and asked me if I was okay. I nodded and turned my head to mother-in-law, who looked furious that she had been caught, with everyone staring at her and judging her for what she had done. She finally confessed that she had just mixed up large amounts of salt into my salad as a harmless prank. My eyes widened in shock, and I asked her why she would ever do something like that. Mother-in-law tried to justify it, saying that salt was not going to kill me or anything, and I would have probably just gone and puked like she did, so is not a big deal. Before I could even react to her callousness, Rick looked like he had lost his mind and started shouting at her. He told her she was crazy for doing something like this, and that she needed to be reported. Mother-in-law scoffed, saying that this was being blown out of proportion, and that salt could never kill anyone. She continued, saying how, as a new mother, I should get used to puking, so this prank was clearly not a big deal. My mother, who had never before disrespected my mother-in-law, marched up to her angrily and said, "How dare you play with my daughter's health, especially during such a special moment? You should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you jeopardize the well-being of your own grandchild? You've gone too far, and I never want to see you near my daughter again," Rick chimed in, saying that what she had done was outright crazy and that her actions were unacceptable. He asked her and her fiancé to leave immediately. Mother-in-law, realizing the severity of the situation, attempted to downplay her actions, insisting it was just a joke, but not a single person came to her support. The atmosphere was tense as Rick escorted his mother out, and I remained standing, still processing what had just happened. Our friends and family came up to me, offering their support. Everyone's excited mood had been brought down by mother-in-law and her immature actions. Rick returned shortly, apologizing to everyone for the disruption and assuring them that we should continue to celebrate, regardless of how toxic his mother was, since he was going to be a father for the first time. The mood had undoubtedly shifted, but our loved ones rallied around us, offering their support and understanding. Since that day, Rick and I have decided that we cannot allow our baby anywhere near his mother after what she has done. Clearly, something is inherently wrong with her. We can't put my life or my baby's life at risk by allowing her to disrupt our lives. Will I be the a-hole if we cut her off from our lives? Update 1. Thank you everyone for your support and comments these past 4 days. To everyone asking why we are even feeling guilty for cutting her off, even after what she did, it's because Rick has never had a healthy relationship with a parent. He and his mom clearly have a toxic relationship, but it's not always easy for a child to cut off their parent, no matter how difficult they are. But because it is now about the health of our baby, Rick seems to have made up his mind about it. I just don't want him to regret anything, which is why I wanted some unbiased opinions from everyone. He has decided to talk to her separately, as I don't have the energy to face her ever again. Hopefully, things go well, and I will update you soon. Update 2. So, it's been a month since my last update. Unfortunately, things have not been going well with our plan to cut off my mother-in-law. First of all, Rick went and talked with her about our decision, and they had a huge fight, which was quite expected. But after that, knowing that we don't want her in our lives, she keeps showing up at our place unannounced. She mostly does this during the weekday, knowing that Rick would be at the office and I would be home alone. Luckily, we already have cameras installed, so I never open the door for her. She hasn't done anything crazy but comes around with chocolates or flowers. I never touch those things, since I have paranoia now in case she has done something to them. Rick always comes back home and throws them straight into the bin. It's unsettling to live with this constant anxiety, and it has taken a toll on my mental well-being as well. We are hoping that eventually she is going to give up, since she is blocked on our phones, and we don't open the door for her either. My parents have been worried for me ever since the incident, and my mother comes over and stays with me whenever she can. For now, I'm just trying my hardest to focus on this journey of becoming a mother and being as healthy as possible for my child. Update 3. Hey everyone, thank you for your continued support these last few months. I would like to apologize for not giving an update sooner. I've been busy with my life, but I have a very important update. Remember when I wrote that mother-in-law would continue to show up at our place, hoping to talk to me? Well, a few weeks ago, after repeated attempts to contact us, she left a letter in the mailbox. I opened it hesitantly, half expecting some manipulative plea or guilt trip. To my surprise, the letter was more of a formal apology. Mother-in-law expressed regret for her past actions, acknowledging the harm she had caused. She promised to respect our decision and give us the space we needed by never contacting us again until we were ready to do so. I was shocked to read the letter. When Rick came, I asked him to double-check if this was really his mother's handwriting, since this was quite unexpected. It turns out that she is married now, which happened way faster than expected, so probably she wants to turn over a new leaf, which I appreciate. Part of me wants to believe her sincerity. However, for the sake of our safety, we will continue to maintain our distance from her for now. Rick and I are focused on preparing for the upcoming arrival of our child, hoping for a peaceful and stress-free environment.